There's a lot of fun things that goes into self-publishing, but at some point, you gotta write the dang book. My name is Lane Sebring. It's so awesome to have you with us today. I'm gonna talk today about how to write your book. It seems super simple, and yet it can get very complicated. And if you've set out on a journey to write your book, this is the video for you. I want to put something free in your hands. You can go to lanesebring.com/5steps and pick up my free 5-step guide to writing a #1 best-selling book, which I've done. My first book was a #1 bestseller on Amazon, and it was a super fun process to try to figure out how to write a book and position it in the market to be able to reach the right people and to be able to provide it to them and be rewarded with that #1 best-selling title, but also just to know that my book is in a lot of people's hands and it continues to sell every single day years later. So I want to show you how to do that. Go to lanesebring.com/5steps and I'll put that in your hands for free. Okay, so let's talk about how to write your book. Now, I like to say that a book is written 500 words at a time. When I wrote my first book, the idea of writing 40,000 words, which is how long my books are. Some books go a lot longer, 60,000. Some novels might be 80 or 100,000. And some books might be shorter, 20, 30,000. But I find about 40,000 words, about 190 pages for the types of books that I write, which are nonfiction. They get right to the point. They solve one problem for the reader and help them be empowered to continue to apply that solution in their lives. About 40 to 50,000 words is my target. So to write 40,000 words for me just seemed like a daunting task because I'm not necessarily a natural writer. I'm more of a speaker than a writer, but I know the power of a book, which is why I wanted to write a book, and maybe you're the same way. Now, if you're a writer and you love to write, then it's going to come more naturally to you to just be able to sit down and crank out a bunch of words. But for those of us who maybe don't write as much, it can be kind of challenging. So I want to try to simplify the process for those of you who are like me. The first step is you've got to have a rock solid outline. I talked about an outline in a previous video. I'm going to link to it in the description. Definitely make sure that if you're going to set out on the journey of writing a book, you don't just sit down and pull up a Word document and stare at a blinking cursor and hope that a 40,000 word project is just going to fall out of the sky onto your lap. That's not how it works. What you need to do is have an outline that you can work with, and it will guide you. You sit down ahead of time with the outline and you really map it out so that when you go to write, you're playing off of the work that you've already done. That just keeps it easy. The key is to have the parts and the chapters and the sections and the notes all in front of you so that you're never staring at a blinking cursor. You never want to have writer's block be an excuse, and if you have a good outline, it won't be because you'll be ready. Now, very simply, what you want to do is go to your outline that you've made, pick a section, look at the notes that you've already made for yourself, and start building them out. And when I say building them out, I mean draft out what you want to write in that section. Now, working with your outline, what you want to do is look at your list of chapters. Pick the chapter that you're most excited about writing about that day. The reason why this is important is because if you just try to go in order, sometimes that's not how our brain works. And especially for nonfiction, where you are helping your reader solve the problem, maybe you want to focus on the latter half first, where you're really working on the solution before you go back to the front and really build the problem out or whatever. The point is, you get to decide on any given day, where do I want to start today? And so go to the chapter, go to the first section of the chapter, look at the notes that you've bulleted out, and begin building on those. And when I say building on them, I mean begin writing. I mean, take those notes and start to write. The most momentum that you'll ever get is just to start. Just by starting, you'll start to see momentum in your writing. You'll start to see progress. One of the things that I do is every day that I write, I set a word count goal. Now for me, what I do is I just say, I need to write 500 words in this sitting, okay, today, right? Because I normally only write once a day. So if I'm writing, I want it to be something that I'm doing at least 500 words at a time. That way it feels like a session. Now, if 500 words seems like a lot to you, it's really not. It's basically like a 5-paragraph essay. It's like a blog post, a short blog post. And so by thinking about, I only have 500 words to write, what that does is it allows me to kind of enter into the moment with not a lot of pressure, because I know that I can crank out 500 words very quickly and move on. But what often happens is that 500 words is enough to get me flowing and thinking and writing, and that 500 words easily turns into 1,000 or 1,500 or 2,000 words very quickly. And before I know it, I've written 2,000 words in one sitting, and in my case, if I write 2,000 words in 20 sittings, I've got a 40,000 word piece of work, which eventually turns into a book. Now, what we're writing right now is the first draft, and so it's a ways away from being an edited, ready for market book, but you got to write it. You got to start with it. And so look at your outline, comb through, go to the section that you want, comb through, go to the chapter that you want, go to the first session, and just make yourself write the first 500 words. Now, essentially, all the first draft writing process is taking this process and repeating it over and over and over until you've filled out your whole outline. And eventually you'll look back and you'll say, my gosh, I got 20,000 words or 40,000 words or 60,000 words, and my book is complete, at least the first draft. Now, before we move on to the second draft and how to do that, I want to give you some writing tips that will help you in this process to not get hung up on things that will slow the process down. Number one, do not try to edit and write at the same time. It just doesn't work. You're either writing or you're editing. The famous novelist Stephen King wrote a book called On Writing, and in that book he talks about how to write. I would highly recommend it. I'll link it below in the description. But one of the things that he says is have an editing brain and a writing brain, and don't let the two mix. So if you're writing, use your writing brain. Allow yourself to make mistakes. Allow yourself to be creative. Allow yourself to follow a train of thought until it ends. Later, you'll go back and put your editing brain on and edit it. But if you try to mix the two, you'll be writing a sentence and correcting it, writing another one and correcting it, and it slows the process down. And your brain is trying to switch between creative and critic, and it just slows it down. So if it's a writing day, just write. And if you're used to editing and it drives you crazy, this will be difficult for you, but believe me, it's worth it. Because the most important thing you need when you're writing a book is progress. You need to see that you're making progress, because it takes a long time to finish your book. And the more progress you make and the quicker you make it, the more you are going to be likely to finish this project and release this book to the world. So don't get bogged down in trying to edit it when you really should just be writing it. And then secondly, I already mentioned this, but it's worth repeating. Make a word count goal every day. For me, as I said, my word count goal is 500, and a lot of times I will get more. Your book is written 500 words at a time, one session at a time, one sentence at a time, one word at a time. And so if you think about it like that, as long as you break it up into enough chunks, you can get your book written in not too much time, but set a word count goal every day and don't try to edit it. The third thing you want to do is have fun with the writing process. This should not feel like a chore to you. This is something that you should not be in a hurry to finish. You will finish soon if you keep doing the process, but don't be so focused on, I just want to get this book written. Enjoy the process. You're going to have a much better book if you actually enjoy writing it and keep the vision in mind. You will be an author soon. So just stick with the process, and eventually those 500 word sessions or whatever goal you set will stack up to be enough where you have a first draft of a book. And then when that's through, you'll move on to writing your second draft, and we'll go on from there. But for right now, if you just started writing, focus on that outline and filling it in with good content. Not editing along the way, we'll do that later. Just letting your brain and your creative juices flow every single day. And eventually, you'll look back and have a book. I would love to hear from you in the comments. What are some of the ways that you keep on task when you write? Do you set a word count goal every day? If so, what is it? I would love to hear from you. What other questions do you have about self-publishing and writing books in general? I would love to address any of your questions on this channel as I'm learning myself and helping you in the process. Again, my name is Lane. I would love for you to subscribe to this channel. I'd so appreciate that. And if you haven't yet, please like this video and share it with a friend, and I will see you in the next one.